You haven't changed one bit, brother.
We're here. Look at us go.
Sorry about that.
That's right. Was that shopping?
Yeah, I just get my meals delivered every Saturday and Tuesday.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, for the week.
Yeah, it's just trying to sort of eat a bit healthy, and it's just, I guess it's like a cost-saving exercise and just streamlines getting meals every day, like rather than cooking. Yeah.
I've started doing 2, 3 for the last 3 weeks now, just the one meal a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have it about 1:30 if I can make it. Usually by 12 o'clock, I'm so hungry, but I eat as much as I possibly can, healthy food.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I turn 30, after 30, it's just so easy for me to put on weight. I don't know whether it's so easy for me to put on weight or it's just I'm getting lazier. And,
could be a bit of both, maybe.
Waking up in the mornings and the first thing I do is go, oh, my bloody knees.
And when we were kids, it was like, I remember the old man would probably say, oh, my knees, and they, oh, shut up, Dad,
Yeah. Oh, my back. Like, oh, come on, like, wake up. Or something I could never get my head around growing up is when your parents would on a Sunday afternoon have a nap. And you're like, why on earth would you have a nap when the sun's in the air and you can go and do your own thing and like play? Now, like, gets the sun, I'm like, bloody hell, I could go for a nap.
The old nana nap, or the quick power nap,
love a nap. And now that obviously in the next couple of weeks I have an excuse. I can start putting on a dad bod and I can start the dad jokes. Although I think I've always been doing the dad jokes.
Oh yeah. But you can relate to your older brother now.
Oh yeah, mate. I don't think his sense of humor has ever changed. It's just been dry. Constantly dry. So how is things? How's work? Has work slowed down for you at the moment over there, or?
No, it's actually got like extremely busy because
really?
Yeah. So obviously, our numbers have slightly restricted in obviously on the project, but they've restricted from a white collar point of view. So like it just, so we've got more engineers, more planners, more quality assurance coordinators working from home. But as far as the blue collar construction crew, which obviously we service as a safety team, that's just been full on. Like it's
really,
yeah. So we're still we're sort of powering through the project. They're expecting completion for end of 2022.
Yep.
And then that's for mainly the tunnel sort of construction, and then end of 2024 for the building. So we've still got 4 odd years for the whole project to.
Because what is it that you're actually constructing?
So it's basically a tunnel that there. So it's two obviously
it's like
twin.
A library. Or...
Yeah, it's like a twin 9-kilometer 9-kilometer tunnels straight through the city, with 5 underground stations.
Wow.
Train stations. Yeah. So there's going to be 2 stations that are going to be in the city that are going to basically, relieve the stress off the actual city, the city loop, which is obviously the main train sort of tunnel through
the trams and stuff.
Yeah. So that was obviously the city loop was built in the 80s. So Those two stations that are part of the the metro will basically take the ease off that, because the city loop's getting really hammered at the moment. So,
and congested, especially as more people, Melbourne's one of the most livable cities in the world. Yeah. And so especially as more people move and that population growth increases, it's going to put more of a strain, I suppose, on. So it's definitely needed what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so, obviously we're in sort of, uncharted waters, so to speak. I think it's, with COVID and stuff, but I think there is a lot of speculation on, construction projects sort of, not getting the tick of approval, so to speak. But I think going forward, there'll be, that demand will definitely pick up. So, there's probably there's a good 2 or 3 projects that come to mind that's going to, continue, going into the future pretty much. That's, it's going to ease a lot of that. A lot of that sort of public sort of, especially with the transport side of things, because they're trying to ease the amount of obviously cars on the road as well. So so there's definitely a lot of work here when it comes to construction and stuff. And I think, as you were saying, you made a point before about Melbourne being like, the most livable city in the world, or the second most livable city in the world. It's definitely got good, it's got good things going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's kind of rallied around each other. Are you finding that it's just a complete ghost town out there at the moment, or what's it like?
Yeah, so you're dead right there. It's sort of like obviously in the city where I'm sort of based. I'm based sort of there's an acoustic shed that we've just constructed with and we're tunneling basically straight under Swanston Street, which is the main street through Melbourne City. So we're about 35 metres underground, and I'm on the corner of Swanston Street and Flinders Lane. So that's where we're located, where our construction offices are. So it's right next to, obviously anyone who knows Melbourne that well, it's right next to the town hall there. So so the actual station's going to be called Town Hall. So
right.
So it's so obviously right next to De Graves Street, which is like a laneway with all, you got the little pizzas places and cafes where you can get your coffees and whatnot. So it's very, very dead at the moment. It's like there's just no one around, and it's kind of like, it's got that sense of like I don't know, like just really, really weird, because it's like you look around and all you see is bloody seagulls and
and lions walking in and out of the streets, and it's like I Am Legend. Have you seen I Am Legend?
Yeah. Well, you've still got the odd person sort of having a run here and there, running around. Obviously going on their afternoon or morning exercise.
Yeah.
But and then you've obviously got a congregation of the police that sort of hang around and just do their
police everything.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that you wouldn't think it's sort of anything like this would sort of have an impact.
Or especially at least reach our shores, like come here to Australia. But we seem to have jumped on the the lockdowns pretty quickly, which is that's whether it works or whether it not, and what it does on the economy, I suppose we're yet to see. But it's good that your industry is still booming. It's interesting that you were saying before about how the white collars, like in the oil and gas and construction industry, obviously it's a lot of blue collar, but are you saying a lot of the white collar, like, putting together all the plans, which is hugely important, all the engineers, etc., are they not working on site anymore?
Yeah, so what they've done is they're still working on site, but the numbers have been restricted. So
wow.
Basically, instead of restricting, the blue collar workforce, where they're basically, they're obviously, working at the coal face, so to speak. We're taking that sort of, the engineering and the designs sort of blue collar workforce, and we're sort of saying, well, can they do their job from home? And majority of them can. There's obviously ones that, they still have to have daily meetings and, planning meetings and, daily catch-ups and whatnot. But a lot of it can be done from home. So, and then, I suppose like with us, we're sort of have to remain, mainly on site because we're obviously have to be in the field quite a lot, and to be seen out there from a safety point of view. So
of course.
So we can, when the restrictions did come into place sort of around March, we were sort of on a rotating roster, we were working from home and obviously on site. But now, since we've had the stage 4 restrictions, we're basically at site, constantly. But I don't know, like it's, I'd rather sort of, I wouldn't say, I really enjoy getting up at 5 o'clock and going, yes, I'm off to work.
Get me out there at 5 o'clock. And why can't we do it at 4? This is so annoying. Why can't we get out there at 4?
I haven't slept all night.
Why can't we just rotate the entire way through? Why do we need to stop at all? Why can't we just keep on going?
But it's actually good to sort of get your morning coffee on the way to work, and then get something out of your day, I suppose, and be a bit productive in that sense. Because at the moment, with as you're probably aware through on the news and whatnot, there's a lot of speculation in that around the stage 4 restriction, and basically when we're not really allowed to. Well, we've got curfew hours, obviously, from 8 o'clock till 5 in the morning. We're not allowed to be outside our home unless we're going to work or, we need to do, things that are of emergency nature or something like that. So, so there's a lot of restrictions in place, and I guess it's just, putting a mask on every day has just become
the norm. the norm. And I was at a market on the weekend, and there was about 6 stands that were selling masks with patterns on them, this new mask that has this hole that lets you breathe. And I was like, what? We are in a completely new world. And like you said, they've got stage 4 now in Melbourne, but it'd be interesting to see what's next. Where do we come from it? And I guess I'm interested and I would love for you to give us a snapshot. I already know your story, but you have been in this industry for the last sort of 14 years, but you've been purchasing properties the entire way through, pretty much as soon as you left high school, and have been investing. And I would love for you to go through that sort of story with us about what got you into that sort of investing and where you started, what you learned from your first one and then to the second one, because you've now been investing for how long, and how many investment properties do you have now?
So basically started investing. Yeah, you're pretty much right there. It's sort of, since 2010. So, it's been, 2009, 2010. So it's been around 10, 11 years of investing. So, so I managed to build a portfolio of 6 investment properties. And so they're mainly all residentials, but then I've also got another 3 in commercial as well. So, so I've got them, the commercial side of things are more like, I do own a property, but I also own, we're in syndicates. So there's unit trusts and stuff where you, obviously, if you don't have, a full amount to actually purchase a property. So, for example, in a self-managed super fund, I'll just throw sort of like a deposit into a syndicate. So there'll be a number of investors that could throw up to 50 to 250 grand into a syndicate, and then basically you get a yearly return off that money, which is obviously better than what you can get in the banks, or better than what you can get sort of anywhere else. So it's quite competitive. But getting back to your question, so I started in 2010, and then basically bought the first one in a suburb called Lakelands, which is sort of down sort of south, obviously south of Perth, which is in between sort of the Rockingham, Mandurah way. So it's sort of near Singleton.
Beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, we know all about it.
We know all about it.
So I guess I got obviously new to investing. So I was in my early 20s, so it was more like, I really like the look of this brochure. It's got really colourful pictures, and I reckon that place would be great. There was a picture of a train and a station and some trees, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go and buy there, I went down there, and then obviously they had stages of land, developments that they were obviously releasing, and then, so I decided to invest and purchase the land separately to the construction. So it wasn't typically house and land package. It was just the land house. So I bought the land, and then basically I was sort of deciding what I was going to do, if I was going to sit on the land or, for a little while and wait, because I was always sort of taught land goes up. Well, not necessarily, just depends on supply, et cetera, and demand. So anyway, so when I think it was around 6 to 8 months later, I decided to, okay, let's start construction. And I ticked all the boxes for the first home buyers and stuff like that. So I got a bit of a, grant from the government. And then when the bank went to value the land, unfortunately, it was about $45,000 less than what I paid for it.
Oh, no. Did you show them the pretty picture, though, and go, but have you...
I was like, you're giving me the grant, but it's just not worth the $45,000. Yeah. Here's my photo. So anyway, luckily enough, I was, as you were saying, luckily enough, I was on the 4-in-1 rosters working FIFO. So I managed to have that $40,000 that I had to come up with in order to go ahead with the construction.
Wow.
If I didn't, then basically it would have put me in a situation of I'd either have to sell or possibly use my parents as guarantor or something.
Sure.
So, but anyway, so I used the funds there, and then we ended up getting the construction. Now that did work quite well. Considering I was working away, and I obviously had to have people to go and sort of sort those things out as far as like from a site level. But overall, it worked out quite well. But when I look back in hindsight, that property hasn't. I guess I've probably got about 12 to 15% growth on that property in about 10 years. Wow. So
no, rule number one: do not get caught up in pretty brochures. Is a good takeaway at the start.
And the thing that got me out of the whole thing, that actual train station that was on the brochure, they only just got the tick of approval to build it. So it's basically,
recently.
So the actual construction's actually not starting till next year.
2021.
Yeah, so it's towards the end of this year, if not early next year. So it's basically 10 years. Because there was there's another story to that as to where they were going to actually construct the train station. So whether it was going to be in Lakelands or whether it was going to be further down in Parnup, which was another area where they were going to build it. But basically the federal government decided to, because they're funding 80% of it, they decided to pull the trigger, and Lakelands was where they decided to build it. But anyway, so they reckon that will be up and running in 2023. So I can bring that brochure out and go,
yes. Yeah. Well done, guys. Thank you. You definitely overshot it by a little bit, by a smidgen, but you definitely came through on your word in the end. I guess that's a really good point to sort of raise, is that first investment property that you bought was probably more of, would you say, an emotional decision rather than logic? And with that said, I did I had some family that decided to, they were like, oh, you're obviously working away and you're earning some decent money, and obviously I wasn't in any
relationship with kids and whatnot, so that there was a lot of cash flow there. So, I decided to invest, and but it's sort of, I guess, looking back in hindsight, it's always good to do that due diligence. And everyone sort of thinks that when you buy into real estate, it's going to go up. It's always going to go up, and
sure.
And it comes down to a supply and demand issue. And I know friends and mentors of mine that have got 15 plus investment properties, but I know people that have got 5 investment properties, but their 5 are outperforming people that have got 12 or 15.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because of the areas where they've bought, and obviously the return and cash flow that they're getting on a yearly basis is like they're all positively geared. So
wow,
if you had 5 that were 10 to 15 positively geared, there's 50 to 75,000 a year. So it just really depends. And I guess there's no everyone has their own little strategy, but I guess from that first one that I built, it was sort of, people always say, oh, your first one's always the hardest, but, it is, but to get into the market, yes. But I sort of had a lot of, luckily enough, I was able to save a lot of money, and instead of using
from working away.
Yeah, so instead of using the equity to get onto my next one, I was using cash deposits, which is not ideally the best way to go. Like, you're best to free up your cash. You're best to use equity, pull the equity out, get another loan, and keep going with the next and the next. But then you've got to be making good decisions as you go. Yeah. So then I got onto the second one, and then I purchased the second one. I sort of had a, like, obviously being a Perth boy myself, I was always, into, investing in my own state, and, you know what I mean? So I didn't really understand the diversification until, 5 years down the track, 5-6 years. So I purchased my first 3 in Perth. And then on the 4th one, I decided, the 4th and 5th, and now the 6th, I've decided to go interstate. So the 4th was, the second one that I purchased was in Coburn Central, which is, it says it all. It's, central to basically, those southern sort of suburbs outside the city. So, it's only about a 19-minute train trip into the city.
They've got a big shopping centre. Land's pretty hard to come by. There's not a whole lot of new developments going in sort of Coburn. There hasn't been in the last few years. So did you see growth on that property in Coburn?
Yeah, so, it was funny. It was a funny one because I sort of, was new to that. I decided to, basically after the 6 months, I decided to move on to Coburn, and then, because it was instead of living in a house, it was, the house was obviously a 4x2, so it was a bit too big for me. So I decided to move into Coburn, which is 2x2 bedrooms, so 2 bathroom, 2 bedrooms. Sorry, so it was more ideal for my lifestyle. But no, we didn't actually see a lot of growth in that, to be honest. And then all of a sudden, on the second purchase, I'm going, what
is investing for me?
So, like I was, I think the valuation coming back on that one, I was about, close to 75,000 in the red.
Wow.
It was, purchased for, I think it was 425, 435, and it's valued at around 350. So, it wasn't going too good for me, but, I think it's always about having a positive mindset too, And
on to the next one.
So it wasn't, so anyone listening, like, don't really take my advice. 2 or 3.
No, but I think the big takeaways, what you're now mentioning, and from your experiences, there's some huge takeaways, which is people can get so caught up in familiarity and buying what they're used to, or they say, no, I want to be able to drive to my investment and look at it. And I think that there's a few really important takeaways on those first 2, which is you don't necessarily have to buy into your first investment into the areas where you live. Second of all, research is so important, and which you're going to get into now, which you've done, which is diversification. So yeah, 100%. You know, people can often rush into, I'm living in this area, so I want to invest in this area, but it may not be the area that is going to grow. It may not be the area, maybe an area that hasn't gone through things like gentrification, or maybe already gone through its growth spurt, and it's in that you know, during the cycle, it's going on a downward trend. You know, like we're probably going to see in pockets of Sydney and pockets of Melbourne that have seen exponential growth that are now easing. But I'm interested to hear what you think of what's going to happen in the Perth market. Do you think that's going to slowly start to increase now, or because we've been waiting for that upswing?
Yeah. So yeah. To answer your question, yes, I do feel. You know, I guess again, it's my personal opinion, but I do feel in the next 6 to 12 months we're going to get some growth in Perth. I feel that you know, obviously the rental vacancies have you know there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of speculation around that, and like I know from one of my properties that obviously the first one I just talked about that was in Lakelands, I've just managed to release that in the last 2 weeks, and yeah, it's gone up another $55 a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're starting to get a little bit of growth in you know, in vacancy rates, and
Right.
on average we're sitting at, you know, I think 1.5%.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, on average in Perth. So that's going by, I think, SQM data and research, which I do get on
Data
there.
research. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, SQM, anyone who's looking into research and stuff, SQM's one of
They're
your...
great.
You've probably heard of
facts. It's not opinions. It's facts. So
yeah, it's factual information. And you can put in like the capital cities, you can put in the suburbs, like the postcodes, and it'll give you like factual evidence. So that's probably one thing for anyone listening in, that if you want to look at property investing and you're looking at different suburbs, get onto SQM and type in the postcode or the suburb that you're interested in. But going back to what you were saying before with the emotional investing, like that's the biggest, that's like the catalyst when it comes to like separating, you know, the people that just want to, I guess, are only looking to buy one sort of property or residential, commercial, whatever, compared to investors. You know, you've got to really look at the figures and the statistics as an investor. A lot of people throw emotion into it and they go, oh, well, I don't like the color of the paint on the walls. I don't like power racks. I don't like this. And they start getting really emotional around the design of the house. Whereas now on the sixth purchase, now I'm just sort of like, you know, we look at all the numbers and everything, and then we look at the design and the layout afterwards, like at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, and you know, and people go, oh, you know, what are you investing in now, and what are you looking at it like? What's the layout of the house? Are you happy with that? And it's like, well, I can't really remember the layout. It's sort of something that we talked about, you know, towards the end. But I can tell you from a cash flow point of view, it's working within the parameters of my goals.
It's funny that shift though, and you know, potentially these last few purchases are going to definitely carry those first mistakes, and the fact that you've held them, and I'm supposing that you've been able to continue the rents, which are covering a big portion of the mortgage, obviously. So even though you haven't seen exponential growth, you holding those properties and having tenants in them, because you know the vacancy rates have always been relatively low. You having tenants in them, you actually haven't felt the growth, but you haven't actually also felt that mistake yet, have you? Because you know, haven't had to sell it as a loss.
No. Well, you're right, because it was sort of, you know, I never locked in interest rates or anything. I always had them as variable, but I managed. I managed to renegotiate and with my lender, So I went from, obviously with interest only investment loan, you got 5 years of paying interest only.
Just interest only, yeah.
Yeah, and then it reverts over to P&I repayments.
P&I.
Yeah, so principal and interest. However, some banks you can negotiate and go, okay, well, can you help me out here, and can we put another 5 years on an interest only? So all of a sudden, of a 30-year loan, you're paying 10 years of interest only repayment. So that helps you. That helps you out, where you can just pay another interest, another 5 years of interest. So you're not paying that extra amount for the P&I, which helps you to save more and put more money in your offset account or whatever you're deciding to do. So whatever your strategy is,
your repayments, yeah.
So you can either take that proportion that you normally pay on principal, and you can put that into a savings account or something, or an offset account, offsetting something else. And you can use that money for something else, or for your next investment, or for your holiday that you want to go on. So there's no magical recipe. It just really depends on how you want to map your lifestyle out. But I guess, like getting back to the way you structure those loans is quite important as well, because I know when you go, basically when you start building your portfolio, there's all different ways of doing it. But if you tend to stay with the one lender, they tend to protect themselves and not so much you, and they cross all your loans. So it's called cross
collateralization. Yeah.
So cross collateralization is quite tough when you decide, for whatever reason, you want to sell one of your properties, or you want to
look at the other one up here.
Yeah, so they cross. So basically what happens is, when you sell it, the bank goes, all right, well, because that other property is used as security, and you might be selling a property at a 50,000 or 100,000 gain, but because your other property that's used as security might be valued 50, 60 grand less, that gain goes automatically onto the other sort of secured property.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So it's one of those things that going forward, you're always got to look at a way of structuring that. And sometimes you have no choice when you have all your loans with one bank, because they just cross them all naturally, because there's protect them, right? So there is ways of unwinding all that cross collateralization, but you don't really want to put yourself in that position if you can try and help that. So that's probably another point anyone listening in can write down as well, because it's very important as you're on your investment journey.
Did you, when you're saying you're going through this, do you have a broker that sets this up for you? Do you have a team? So do you have a broker? Do you have an accountant? Do you have a financial planner that puts everything together for you? Or are you really doing that all your own on your own background, and you're doing your own research? Are you doing it all off your own back, or?
Yeah, so that's a pretty good question there, Jimmy. It's sort of it's one of those things that I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've done a lot of due diligence, and the one thing that always comes up is your team. Your team of professionals that are working for you. So technically, you're like the CEO of your empire, or the CEO of your portfolio, and basically you just get that team working for you. So obviously, they get paid, and they're in it for your sake as well as theirs. So it's a bit of a win-win situation. But that's really important to get the right people. So it's not a matter of, I've got an accountant, I've got a mortgage broker, and because it's about their experience. So like, for example, with your accountant, there's no point having an accountant on your team that hasn't actually invested in property, because they don't really know, like they haven't experienced it, right? They might be going to all these seminars and whatever to learn about the new legislation, but they don't actually know from experience how to invest in property, because they've never done it. So you've got to get, an accountant that, and there's nothing wrong with asking those questions and going, well, sorry.
What's your experience?
It's like anything in life. Like, what's your experience? Like if you go to an accountant or a dentist, or go and get a plumber over and go, well, is this your first time doing this? Or, you know?
No, it's a great point. You know, like there's a big difference between watching a footy game on the sidelines and learning all about it. But the minute that you're on that field and the bright lights are on and the ball comes hurtling towards you, it's pretty easy to say, yeah, you should just be able to lift your knee and then mark it. But when there's lads running at you at high speeds, you know, your brain goes to mush and you freak out. So yeah, it's so different. You know, you want somebody that's been in the game and done it before, and that professional, you know.
Yeah, and I guess as a side note, you know, saying that, you know, looking at people that are professionals that have got experience, you know, I'm still waiting for Fremantle Dockers to win a flag, man.
You and me both. You and me both. I think bring back Mickey Barlow when we might have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, you and Mick go way back.
Lee Spur and Mickey Barlow and Subin, bring him back, and Garrick Ibbotson, Zach Dawson, bring back the dream team. Slip in Lockie Neal, and we got ourselves a winning combo.
yeah, we got to try and pull him back from Brisbane. But anyway,
it's going to be tough.
Yeah, but getting back to what you're saying, yeah, you're right. It's sort of about getting those professionals, and it becomes a lot clearer too, and you sort of tend to get, you know, when you got the professionals working for you and showing you, you know, and you know, basically how things are done from their end, the visibility on that becomes a lot more clear. And
sure,
yeah, you sort of tend to understand things more. And there's nothing wrong with asking multiple questions too, like, you know, because that's really the only way you can learn and advance. Really, it's like you if you're not sure on something, just, you know, it's always good to question that, and, you know, and say, well, sorry for being rude here, but I don't understand that concept. Can you explain it? So, you know, like there's all different strategies around negatively gearing or positively gearing, or what's right, what's wrong. You know, it really depends on your income that you're earning and how much tax you're paying per year, and if you can offset your tax. If you're paying, you know, 47 cents in the dollar or upwards, then you want to possibly get a few negatively geared properties under your belt so you can offset your income tax.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just depends on the strategies you got. And, you know, like there's always other ways too, like to get sort of cash flow coming in. You can look at, you know, tax variations. So it's always good to talk to your accountant. And anyone who doesn't know what a tax variation is, it's basically the tax that you get from your income tax from, you know, the year before. They prepay it for the next year. So even though they don't know what you basically the ATO might not know what your obviously they don't know what your income's going to be, but they prepay you that return over the year, and then obviously if you earn more or less at the end of that year, then they basically you either owe the ATO or you either get a bit more of a return. So it just really, but there's different strategies. It's best, as I said, I'm not here to give anyone advice. It's more of a fact that you got to speak to the professionals. But you know, there's different ways to get ahead, and I guess that's what it's all about in property. It's about knowing what your goal is, and then suiting your needs around that. And if it's for to advance yourself and basically retire at a younger age, or create that lifestyle for family members, and that's what you do what it takes, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And you now with your properties, you're from the first one until now, have you still got that same team that you're using, or has the team evolved? Have you surrounded yourself with more professionals, more experts? Because there's so much information out there, which can sometimes be detrimental and a little bit overwhelming. And like you said, so many different strategies, and, you know, your strategy may not work with the person that's investing next door to you, for example.
No, well, you're right there. Good question there, Jimmy, because it's something that does pop up quite frequently, and there's nothing wrong with going through, I guess, readjusting people in your team, or just asking those hard questions, I guess. And if they're not doing enough or working for you, then you possibly have to have those conversations. But I think overall, yes, so like from the portfolio that I've built, it's more of properties. Yeah, I have reconfigured professionals in the team, and
That's
obviously moving sort of interstate as well. Obviously the relationships. There's relationships that I've still obviously got that are still working for me, but there's ones that I've also probably released or advanced into another area or whatever. Yeah. But like it's I think for starting out in property investing, it's as you said, there's just so much information, and you don't know what's right, what's wrong. Is that because someone's strategy, that they've been successful with might be different to yours. So there's no, as I was saying earlier, there's no secret recipe.
Yeah.
Because, like everything's different. So I guess anyone who's listening into the call that's really keen to get started, I think the best bit of advice I can give you is to, if you can do all your own due diligence and you have the time to do all that, because that all takes time. It takes time. Time equals money, all that sort of stuff. So I guess the best part is to always look at maybe for you a buyer's agency or some sort of mentor or a coach or someone that can actually do all that work for you, and then you can pay them. And 9 times out of 10, what you pay them is already consolidated in the actual in the loan or in the finance structure. So the banks pay them or whatever, or you don't have to actually ETF or pay that money in cash.
Yeah.
It's actually built into the actual into the property, so you don't even actually really recognize. You don't, they obviously tell you what the fees are, but you don't. It's not actually coming out of your hard-earned cash, so to speak. Like in some cases it is, but they'll always be transparent with you, and you will know what's actually happening. But 9 times out of 10, it's built into the actual house and land package, or the apartment, or the townhouse, or whatever you're buying.
And I think, and if you're surrounding yourself with the right group, the right professionals, it's in their best interest that your property has exponential growth, not only in the long term, but in the shorter term as well, so that you can leverage that equity and then move on to the next one. So your professionals, the team that you surround yourself with, they want your property to grow.
Well, exactly, because they, obviously, they want clients for the long term. So, if they obviously have a bit of foresight, it's like, well, I want to keep my clients for as long as I can, because it saves me, re-advertising or trying to get a new sort of client base. Because, the best part of business, not that I'm, you could probably call property investing a business, but from yourself from a sort of a business point of view, it's always word of mouth, really. That goes a long way, and I've referred a lot of friends from mine into I've referred them on to the team members that I've got. So you learn as you go, and you do. As long as you're moving forward, and it's always good to I guess reassess what you've got as well, because it's not about, there's a reason why you're building this portfolio. There's a reason why you're looking at property. It's not just because so and so is doing it because that's why I'm doing it. I think it's more of the fact that you need to have a passion in this stuff to actually make it work and for it to be consistent, really, because. You need to reassess what the cash flow looks like for each property as well. And, if you keep on top of your tax through the year, then it becomes easy, when it comes to the 30th of June, you sort of already got everything structured, you're just waiting on a few little things to be sent over in August or whatever, or July or whatever. So,
you're not freaking out come tax time.
So, it's the old thing, you get a lot of people with, that come in, property investors that come in with a box of shoebox of receipts and go, there you go.
Get me some money, or do I owe you money?
So, but like with that said, it's not always about the cash at the end of the day as well. It's all, you're building this portfolio for the lifestyle. So eventually you want to live off the capital growth or live off the income that to get you out of the rat race, or whatever your strategy is. At the end of the day, you can sell some to pay down others, to pay down some debt. If you're getting into close to retirement, you want to, it might be getting a bit too hard to manage all these properties, like even though you got a team to manage it, you still, as I was saying earlier in the conversation, it was more about you're the CEO of your portfolio. So you've got to overlook everything and see if everything's tracking the way you want it. Whether you do that with spreadsheets or whether you do it, just your own sort of way. It just, you've still got to manage that process.
And what is so it's exactly right. Like, you're the one that is ultimately in control, and you want to be all over your investments. And do you get to a point? Do you get an alert? Do you personally have a financial benchmark of where certain properties have to get to before you reinvest, or is it based on opportunity?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, it's always sort of been about opportunity. So, for example, now, like, I'm sort of settling on my sixth and at the moment, and in the next week or 2 weeks. So that's a townhouse. So my portfolio consists of houses and apartments at the moment, but I'm moving into a townhouse now. So, wow. And that's going to be located over in Queensland. So sort of in between the Brisbane City and the Gold Coast. So it's in an area where there's some growth, and and I've decided this is basically a fitted out townhouse already, so it's already been constructed, and pretty much from day one of settlement, it's just going to be cash flow coming in.
That's great.
Yeah, and so I think it works out, around $90 to $100 of cash flow a week, wow. Coming in. So that's obviously after tax and everything. So it's something that's ticking along for me. And like, I mean, I've already got half of the portfolio's probably got a bit of growth, but they're still negatively geared, whereas I've got the other half where I'm getting sort of positive cash flow, but then I haven't really got the capital growth on those positively cash flow properties. That makes sense. So there's sort of
it's a mix.
Yeah, so there's abundance of different properties, because you get to a stage where if you've got a portfolio of, like, your whole portfolio is negatively geared, it gets to a stage where it's like, if your income can't service those loans, the shortfall, because eventually the shortfall, if you're building 5-10 properties and they got a shortfall, then eventually all your income is getting exhausted from your property. So, you might get some healthy tax back if you're on a big, if you're on some sort of decent income, but you don't invest for the tax benefits. Like, you don't invest in property just for the tax benefits. You invest in property because you want to get growth, and you want to ideally you want to get some sort of cash flow from them, because that will get you where you want to be. That will get you to an area, when you're in your mid-40s or your early 40s, mid-40s, whatever your strategy is, it'll get you there quicker if you've got properties that are delivering some sort of income. Yeah.
And cash is king, because anything can happen at any point. And so if you've got cash that's coming in, it can support you. But you're so right. You just said about getting that mix, and having that mix is so important, because if you do, like exactly like you said, have a whole bunch of properties that are costing you money, then, you know, all it sometimes takes is one to sort of bring down, you know, the dominoes. So it does, when you're doing it, it's so important to, you know, surround yourself with experts. But then on the other side, if you've got them all that are bringing in cash flow, but there's no capital growth, then it's hard to sort of leverage it into another one and keep building your portfolio. So it's...
You're dead right there, Jimmy. It's sort of, you know, you've got to have it well. I guess at the end of the day, it's got to be well balanced. You know, it's got to be, you've got to understand each property and the benefit of having that property. And you've got to understand, you know, basically what it's doing for you. Like, you know, if it's not, you know, if it's not really achieving anything for you, maybe you need to restructure that. Like maybe you need to look at other options. You know, there's nothing wrong with offloading it and looking at something else that might be giving you some growth earlier. You know, I mean, my strategy is always to, you know, to purchase and hold, but you know, because, you know, you always look at, you know, you always learn as you go, but I guess it's always the strategy for investing. For me, property investing is always about, you know, long-term growth. So it's not a you know, a quick get rich scheme. It's more about or trading. Like if you want to trade, go and have a look at the share market. But want to look at property investing, you really got to be there for the long term. You know, we're looking at a minimum of, you know, 10 to 20 years, 10 to 15 years, 20 years. You know, like you've got to go through those cycles and understand them. You know, and that's how you really build long-term wealth, you know?
Having that long view is so important. I think patience is important when you're property investing as well, because, you know, you can get so caught up and so caught out in going, there's a small mining town. I've just found out that there's a new mine going in there and it's going to bring a surge of workers, and I can get something for $100,000 going to skyrocket to $200,000. So following these little spikes in the property market can definitely trip you up, because, you know, and you hear the stories all the time. I went into a mining town. I went into an area that, you know, the army had set up for a little while, or the Navy had set up for a little while. And you get in there and property prices go up, and then the mine's all done and dusted. And then you're left with a property that it plummets just as fast as it's risen, and nobody that wants to rent it because there's too many properties on the market, and it can catch you out. So it's interesting that you say that about, you know, patience and having that. And I think that's why you've been able to build up such a healthy portfolio, because you've had that long-term view. And even though you made mistakes early, you've gained experience, and then been able to, if you stopped there, then you would still have those two properties, or you'd have sold them, but you wouldn't have been able to have all these other opportunities in the portfolio that you have now. So it's it's really interesting. What is the plan? Are you keep on going, keep on buying more?
So I guess getting back to what you were saying, I think the kicker or the light bulb moment for me was when I got onto I basically got onto the fifth. So the fifth purchase was the kicker for me. So that was when the fourth purchase was obviously in Queensland. The fifth one, I decided to invest in Melbourne, but I actually got a good friend of mine who's obviously got his own property advocate or agency business, and I basically got him involved, and we decided to invest in a 4x2 house, you know, 42, 43 Ks, you know, north of Melbourne. And it was in a suburb called Doreen. And I managed to get in there at about 430 or 440 K. And within 9 months, it was valued at around 600.
Wow.
And that just went kaboom. And and I was like, oh, I don't have to put money into this.
I've nailed it. Yeah.
So yeah, so that valuation came back, and then but to get in, so I actually had to pretty much put 20% deposit into that.
Okay.
Yeah, into that purchase. So that, just because of the portfolio I had was struggling, to avoid LMI, lender's mortgage insurance, I had to dig in the old 90 odd K to stick into out of cash. It was cash.
Wow.
I had to stick it into Doreen, and then yeah. So I 90 out of that 95K, I think I made 200%.
Wow.
9 months. So, but that was all just, I guess, that timing of that market at that time, and that just, that was the kicker. And then from there, I've managed, to build from there and get some solid equity as well, because the ones in Brisbane and Perth have sort of, like Perth's building momentum a bit, but Brisbane actually went up slightly, and I've also paid down some debt as well, so I've consolidated a little bit as well. So yeah, so, and having those deposits, as I was saying earlier, the deposits have been pretty healthy, because it's been anywhere from 45K to like 65 to 70K per property, and
wow,
a lot of them hasn't been equity to get me where I have. So
I think it's a really, really important point really important to point out, is what I'm trying to say, that all of this money that you've been tipping in is off your, like, you've worked your ass. You got out of high school and you've just worked your ass off, haven't you? Like, you haven't got, massive amounts of inheritance and bits and pieces and gifts. You have just, and it's important to know that even though you've still got this portfolio of 9, you're still getting up at 5, and like, you have worked your ass off, because, which I'll get to in a second, because you have this goal and this driver. So it's important to note as well that, yes, it's important to do the research. It's important to build up a healthy portfolio and surrounding yourself with experts. But, it's not something that, the 10, 15 year, 20 year hold means that you're still going to be working.
Yeah.
You're still going to be working during those times. Not something you're not going to buy to, like you said, get rich really quickly, retire off all the income, say goodbye to the 9 to 5, or the 5 till 9, probably in your case.
No, you did right, Jimmy. I think it's like, I've always had those long-term sort of goals, and I've tried to, probably a bit like yourself, you beat yourself up over some things sometimes, and you think, there is more to life than that. But people go, why is so-and-so this and why is that? Like, for everyone's success, for 90% of people's success, there's a lot of stuff that people don't see too. So like, a lot of work behind what people have achieved, I guess. So, and like it's always about trying to remain humble and giving back as well. Like, that's quite important for me now. Like, I'm starting to look at, building schools in Cambodia and giving back and helping.
Wow.
So I've built, onto the third school and through Cambodia and trying to give.
Incredible.
Yeah. So it's sort of looking, having your team, and then and also obviously those successful individuals put you onto other people that are successful and got the same sort of mindset and the same goals, and they're driven, and then that can just open up other avenues or other doors, so to speak. So there's a lot more involved, like with with, I guess, having money or being a part of that, and there's a lot more involved with behind the scenes of where people have come from and where they want to be and how they want to make the world a better place as well. So I think
that's incredible.
I think it's quite important to sort of also give back and pass wealth forward and help people out that are in need too. So.
Well, it's good to hear that after all these years, my mum and dad have rubbed off on you. So
actually, I do remember. I think it was I think it actually was your grandmother that turned around when I was back in. I think we'd just finishing. I think we might have just started in Colby College there, or maybe towards the end there where we were graduating. And she goes, "What are you doing now? And you're not going to get into when are you going to finish on looking at getting out of mining?" Or I was just like, that's when I sort of just obviously graduated and then started getting in that trend, I suppose. But no, it's I guess it's been a pretty long journey, and there's been a lot of hurdles in place. But if you didn't have the hurdles, then it wouldn't be really a challenge, would it? So.
No, exactly, and it makes that victory all that much sweeter. What's the goal? What's the aim? Do you have? Is it a financial? Is it a number that you're working towards? Is it an age that you're working towards? Are you planning on retiring early and then enjoying, your later years traveling the world, or is it just to keep going?
Yeah, so I think it's quite funny because you do set goals and they tend to revisit them, and then something changes as in your life, and then you can adapt to the change or whatever. But I think I think the long-term goal for me is to obviously keep building on that portfolio, but also shift my focus onto I guess enjoying life as well, and that be settling down soon. I mean, I'm getting hassled every day.
Just from women, just constantly.
No. My mother.
No. So let's do it. What's happening? Yeah. Well, let's do a shout out now. Women, multiple properties, hardworking. If you're only going to do it just to silence his mother, now is the time. Inquire below. Click the link below.
Everyone's it's whatever you're comfortable in life, and I think it's my priorities is obviously working hard, and things obviously happen for a reason in life, as
for sure,
as you're well aware yourself. So it's more about things will come at the right time. And I'm just looking I'm happy here living in Melbourne at the moment, and working in construction on that tunnel, and building the portfolio as well, and having a good time with meeting new people and giving back. So I think going forward is still building that foundation, and hopefully, like in the early 40s, I can start taking the foot off the accelerator a bit and going, okay, well, now we might start looking at depending on what happens in those 6-7 years, like
of course,
married kids. And that changes the dynamic again. But I think if you start with a solid foundation in your early years, when you've got more patience, you're young, you're fit, you got more energy. You're not always fit, but
your knees are better, your joints don't ache.
Yeah. You've got more patience, and then you've got more time, and you don't have as much responsibility, and then you can build that foundation in wealth or whatever. And then hopefully, if your health serves you right and everything goes to plan, then you can look at your you can look back on those years, and you can look at what you've got and go, okay, well, now I've got choices. Now I can choose to do this, or I can choose to do that, or I can work 2 or 3 days a week, or I can, I can enjoy this, or I can take a trip over to overseas twice a year or whatever, I think it's all about having options,
Yeah, you've shifted that balance between having to work to generate an income and then, like you said, now you've got options whether you want to take a year off or you want to go travel the world or, like you said, settle. But the best thing about what you've done and like you said, you've made such a sacrifice in your early years that, when you start having kids, don't worry, Mrs. McEvoy, I'll be on his back. I'll make sure that we sort him out. This doubles into like a late night matchmaker show. So next on the call, we've got three ladies.
I think we have a Zoom call every second day. What's the progress?
But if you want to drive your kids to school, if you want to take the day off and hang out with your kids, and you want to go traveling with your kids, you've made that sacrifice early. Or you want to be like, for me, I've always wanted to be that dad that goes to all the sporting events and is the one that's screaming at the person coming first and telling them to slow down so that my kids can overtake them and come first. And the sacrifice that you had to make to get to that point, and you do have to put in the hours and you do have to work your ass off, and you've done that, and it's paying dividends.
Yeah, you're right, Jimmy. I think it's taking taking that step back and revisiting what you've created and going, okay, well, what now? And I think going forward too, I mentioned earlier about sort of giving back and help and assisting,
That's
people.
Huge.
Yeah, whether it be in Australia here, I like to put a lot of effort into my own country, too. And there's a lot of people that need help around Australia as well. But I always like to recognise that, and then also move into a lot of third world countries as well, internationally, and look at building schools and
so
being
rewarding
and supporting that. So so there's as I said, it's just the sort of, I guess, having those options and not being boxed into the 9 to 5 or 2, because I guess it's as you get older, as I said, the patience wears quite thin, and then once you start having kids, it puts more financial pressure onto you as well. So there's I guess at the end of the day, it's having those options and choices as well. So, but yeah, like overall, like it's it's good to move forward as well and look at building building a lifestyle that you sort of dream of, so that's the kicker, I suppose, with this whole investing sort of stuff.
Yeah. And I guess the key takeaways is that things take time, and there is that sacrifice that you do have to make. But if you have that patience and you do that research and you surround yourself with the right team, you can you're testament to the fact that you can make mistakes early on. But if you learn from those mistakes, that like property, like you said, that long-term hold, you just look at the graph, it doesn't necessarily go like this and this and this and this. Well, it does, but it's over time. It all goes like this, and so there may be a dip, but over time, property. I think you put up a really good graph on your Facebook story or Instagram story the other day, and it showed it does go like this, but if you look at it over from the 80s to now, property always goes up. You've just got to be able to ride that wave.
I think it was from the GFC, so I think around 2008 or 9, I think, to date, like to 2020. So, over that 11, 12-year period, like obviously different states have obviously done different things, but the overall take on it was that they've all trended in an upwards sort of motion, So when you look back in hindsight, people like I guess it's that comparison to the pandemic. Like we obviously had the GFC in 2008 or 9, and then around 9, I think in 2009, and then you've obviously got we got a pandemic now. So people tend to, we all listen to the media and we we get absorbed by all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's definitely something to be mindful of. I'm not saying it's not, and there's people that are getting sick from it, and yeah, but you know, life still keeps moving forward. So you know, you still got to have your eye on the prize at the end of the day. And yeah, I think property investing's always been something of mine, that something that I've always had a passion for, and I've just driven to try and you know, make it work. So and learn from those mistakes, and learn from other people's mistakes as well. Like,
it's important.
It's not just about what I could have done better. It's also about, well, what have other people done, and how can I improve, and how can I learn from their mistakes as well. So I think it's always about having a passion for what you want to do, and having those options, and striving for the best. Yeah.
No, I love it. Like you said, yeah, leveraging from other people's mistakes is, sometimes just as important as, learning from your own. Because again, you're just surrounding yourself with information. And if you have the right information, it's going to mean that you're making those right decisions. Or if you get tripped up, you've got the patience to be able to write it out. Because like you said, GFCs, pandemics, and all the rest of it, people still need a place to live. That's why same with myself, and with my investing, I don't dive into the stock market, because it's not necessarily tangible, and it's not to say people don't make a lot of money from it, but property is something that it's a physical asset, and regardless of GFCs and pandemics and bits and pieces, people still do need some place to live. So,
well, that's exactly right, and I guess. I guess, as you said, it's something that is more of a need than a want, and everyone needs some sort of roof over their head. So it's about crunching the numbers and going, okay, well, as the population's, it's on an upward trend, it's always going to be growing. We've always got people, new people, obviously people coming into the world, and there's obviously people dying as well, but there's more babies being introduced into the world, and the population's growing, and let's look at buying some houses, and and putting a bit of mapping out a plan, and trying to achieve it, but as I was saying before, it's not always about smooth sailing. You got to learn, like, I've probably learnt the hardest going by my, 2 or 3 experiences. And I guess if I wasn't in that lucrative mining construction job at the time, I probably wouldn't have been on this podcast.
Yeah. So you've gone through all of that, and the light at the end of the tunnel, you're on the podcast. So, it's all been worth it. See? You knew you did it all for a reason.
Yeah, I do. I knew I'd be on this podcast, and I'd be going on about what not to do.
Yeah. So when you're going through that Lakelands, 2009, 2010 saga, you're like, it's all going to be worth it for the bloody podcast.
I just wish I had that brochure that I could just show you with the train on it. It's actually getting built now, right?
It's so funny, is it though? But mate, I just want to say thanks so much for your time tonight and coming on. And we've had some property experts, CEOs of First National Real Estate, somebody, Dr. Shane last week, who's done 3,500 property keynote speeches in property, and done over 200 billion, I think, in property development. And I really wanted you to come on the show because, you can have all these experts, but to hear your story firsthand, there's so many great insights on the long hold strategy, building the right team around you, and making sure you have a panel of experts. And we keep saying to people all the time, research is the key. So mate, first and foremost, it's just great to catch up. It's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. And I was really happy that you reached out, because I haven't sort of spoken or seen you for a little while, and I thought, gee, like, oh, Jimmy Mullaney, eh? the gab and I'm loving it.
Well, mate, it's been unreal speaking to you tonight, and I'm gonna now cross over to I'm just hearing we've got your mother live on the on. Then we're going to line up the women, and we're going to pick through them, and we're going to get you back on the next show, and you're going to have to pick them live. Yeah.
That's part 2.
Yeah, matchmaker. Mate, thanks so much for your time tonight, and wish you all the best, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, likewise, and all the best for the business, mate. I know I've seen a lot of it on social media, and obviously it's obviously doing really well for yourself and your business partner, and all the best for the new baby coming into the world too. Congratulations.
Ready to be a dad. Looking forward to putting on the belly.
Say hello to the family for me, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. Speak soon.
Take care,
See you, buddy.